Okay, Brigadier General Yossi.
Thank you. And first of all, I don't have much to add to what Dr. Said said. I think it's a very comprehensive description of the situation and the importance of this visit. And yes, it is both symbolically important because President Herzog is the symbol of the state of Israel. He's not a regular politician. He's a symbol, and that's why it's so important. Because, as Dr. Said said, we are talking here about peace between the people, and the president in Israel first and foremost represents the people, and it's not involved in the inner politics, and that's something very important because all of the Israelis, are totally thrilled to see this happening. And, this is something that's very unique in Israel, that is so mired in these political debates. But on that issue, there is a very wide consensus about the importance of the relations with the United Arab Emirates and with the rest of the members of the Abraham Accords that are committed to promoting peace. I think the second thing that's very important is that we stand together here. On the issue that for the UAE is just like the second name. And it's no wonder that the president is going to meet the Minister of Tolerance, because tolerance, this is the message of the United Arab Emirates, and as opposed to extremism, and as opposed to hatred. And I think this is very important, that it's coming at a time when this message is gaining more and more traction in the region. I mean, it's coming at this time when the president was already finalizing the details of its coming trip to Turkey as well, which tells you that it's more and more countries are coming in, and it's coming at a time when there is progress inside some of the Arabs living in Israel. The fact that we have Arabs in the coalition, and that the leader of this Arab list is speaking about Israel being a Jewish state and staying a Jewish state, and speaks about the Jewish people. These are all changes that are part of the background upon which this visit takes place. And it's very important because the Abraham Accords, it tells you how important the Abraham Accords were in changing the entire scope of what's happening in the Middle East. This is very important. Now, on top of that, there is the strategic importance because it comes at the time when both Israel and the United Arab Emirates are under attack from radicals. We saw what happened in May here, and now something similar is happening to the United Arab Emirates with the attacks coming from the Houthis in Yemen. And we have to stand together in facing those threats from the radicals who are unhappy with the progress of peace, and we have to be able to work against it. And I think the commitment of Israel to support the United Arab Emirates and vice versa is extremely important. And Dr. Said touched upon the importance of that in the context of what's happening in the United States. The United States is sort of leaving the area. We are very concerned about what's happening in Iran. I think coming to the UAE in a time like that, when the fate of the Iranian nuclear project is going to be determined, is very important for Israel, and to show that we are there together with the United Arab Emirates facing this radical threat. It's very important strategically speaking, and I think this is a message to everybody. That said, everything that was mentioned here about the need to strengthen the bilateral relations is also extremely important, because the message of the Abraham Accords is that peace is in the benefit of everybody, of the people. And the way to make it seen is by promoting the bilateral cooperation. And Israel has a lot to gain, and Israel has a lot to give in these relations with the Arab states. And everybody understands that. And I think that this visit is being used also to to open the Israel Day on Expo is another way of sending this message. And the more we give, the more we get, because the more we help the Arab states using our technology progress and so on and so forth, in areas of water and cyber and whatever, it's a proof that it's a good idea to make peace agreements with Israel for the benefit of everybody. And that's what we want to prove in the context of this visit. And if we do that successfully, and I think this is a message that is going to be transpiring through this visit, then we expect other countries to join in. And this message that the president was saying while he was flying over Saudi Arabia, especially a few days after some strange attempt to put a shadow on these relations in the context of the NSO project, is a clear message that these relations are going to flourish and widen and spread to other countries, hopefully in the near future. And we are all looking forward to see that happening. I'll totally support what was said. I think that by moving towards the Abraham Accords, this was another very influential way in which the UAE shaped the Middle East. And when you talk about influentialism, whether you are shaping or being shaped by others. And I think that the UAE had a major role in shaping the Middle East, the way it is developing now. And I think this is very important. It's one way of having an impact was in Yemen, as Dr. Said described it, but it's beyond much beyond that. And the UAE is a power that everybody has to take into account when they look at the Middle East, and it is a power for the good. That's the most important thing about it, because we have powers for the bad, for the worse, like Iran and others. But here is a power for the good that has very clear capabilities to really have an impact. And I think that it also takes courage and to be influential. And the UAE proved it's courageous as well, not only capable but courageous to use its capabilities. And I think this is something that turned the UAE into a country that had an impact on the Middle East. And it's not going to stop where it has already been impacting, but I think it's going to have a further impact in the future.
Okay, I have here two questions. First question for Brigadier General Kuperwasser. Okay, it seems like to outside observers that Israel has changed policy under the current Prime Minister to a more accommodating stance regarding the talks with Iran, as compared to prior public resistance as under Netanyahu. To what do you attribute this change?
Well, I beg to differ. I don't think that we have changed our policy. We are still looking at what's happening in Vienna in a very concerned way. We are worried about the possibility of coming back to the old JCPOA. We think this is a very dangerous way, because it was going to pave the road for Iran to eventually, within 10 years or maybe even less, have the capability to produce a big arsenal of nuclear weapons without having to worry on the way to that point about the crossing threshold where it is vulnerable to Israeli or American steps. And that's something that we are very much against. We think that we are not against an agreement. I mean, this is the previous government and the current government. We are not against an agreement, but we want an agreement that would really guarantee that Iran will not be able to produce nuclear weapons in any time in the future. That's what we're looking for. At the same time, there is a small change in the tone in which we say what we mean. And I think that this government is a little bit less confrontational with the American administration. But beyond that, I think it has the same view. The only thing that where there's a political debate in Israel, whether there's a difference or not, is on the question of what Israel is going to do in the future if there is an agreement. And the question is whether Israel is going to coordinate whatever it's going to do with the Americans. I think on that, even on that, I think that in the end of the day, there's not much difference. Israel, as Prime Minister Bennett said, is not obliged to the decisions taken in Vienna because it's not a member of any future agreement. and it's going to do whatever it needs to do in order to protect itself and prevent Iran from having nuclear weapons in the future. That's whether it's going to coordinate these activities with the Americans or not, it's an open question. Netanyahu was more determined not to do that. Maybe this government is less speaking about it.
Question. Is there any chance that the improved relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates would have a positive impact on the conflict with the Palestinians?
Is that for me or for the...
I'll take it because you just worked so hard. So I'll take it. I hope so. I hope so. I mean, you see, the Palestinians are always caught in this difficulties they have to give up on their basic confrontational narrative against Israel, this denial of the right of the Jews to live here, and so on and so forth, and this prevents them from moving forward towards peace. Now, we are having here a golden opportunity to show them the benefits of making peace, which they refuse to admit. And I hope that we are going to be able to make them join in and move forward towards more reasonable attitude towards Israel in the future. And we saw, for example, that while at the beginning they were so much against the United Arab Emirates moves in the context of the Abraham Accords, today their resentment is fading out, and they understand that they have to accept it. And more and more people inside the Palestinian community, in my mind, understand that this is the change that has to take place. If you look at Mansour Abbas, for example, in the context of the Arab Israelis, he has already gone the first move, has done the first move in this direction. I hope we shall have these kind of attitude supporters gaining power also in the Palestinian arena as well. And that we should be able, and that was the purpose right from the beginning. And the United Arab Emirates has just sent them more vaccines, and as they did in the beginning they refused to accept it. Now they are ready to accept it. It's we are moving slowly, but we are moving in the right direction to have the Palestinians involved in this effort, and the Palestinians have plenty to gain out of joining in. So I hope that eventually this is going to gradually happen and contribute to the ability to move forward towards peace between Israel and the Palestinians as well. This is the only way forward. The confrontational attitude is not going to gain them anything, and it's going to charge heavy prices from everybody. And that's what the Hamas is promising them. That's leading nowhere. And unfortunately, Abbas is not openly speaking according to the new attitude. But if you see his actual moves, the meetings between Lapid and Gantz with Abu Mazen and Hussein al-Sheikh tells you that something is happening in this direction in spite of what's being said publicly. And this is something very important. I'm hopeful that this is going to have a positive impact. And on top of that, I must say that it's not only the UAE. The improving relations between Israel and the Turks can also have some positive impact in this context.
Catherine?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for your discourse. It was very interesting. I just wanted to go back to the strategic questions to both of you. Do you, for now, you already spoke about the support of Israel for the Emirates regarding the conflict with the Houthi, and but what could be or what would be the case if Israel wants to attack Iran, and what would be or what should be the position of the Emirates regarding this concrete situation? It would be possible that, let's say, for example, the the jets of the Israel army could make a stop in Emirates before or after attacking Iran positions, for example?
Okay, who will go first to answer?
You want me to answer first? I'll answer first.
Because this is a more military, so I would prefer
Yeah,
that.
I'll try to handle it. So a straightforward question. Yeah, well, first of all, we hope we should not have to do anything militarily against Iran. That's not our preferred option. And we believe that pressure over the Iranian regime will deliver the results that we all want and stop the Iranian nuclear project. That's what we believe and what we are focused on. That said, there is a tendency in Israel to get ready and prepared to every eventuality, including the need to do something more powerful. And I don't think that in any of these we are going to involve the Emiratis. If we need to do something, we'll do it on our own. We are not going to make the Emiratis involved in that. I don't think the Emiratis want to get involved in that. So we respect their interest and their will. And Israel is a powerful country that can do that if necessary without the Emirates. What we do think is that the Emirates can have a role in this effort to put pressure over Iran. That's because there are very strong relations commercially between Iran and the UAE, and they are close and they are important to each other. I think that in this respect, the United Arab Emirates has a role in supporting the idea that the end game should be that the Iranians are going to give up their effort to acquire a big arsenal of nuclear weapons or any arsenal of nuclear weapons. That's what we expect from the United Arab Emirates, and I think the message. The Emiratis recently have tried new ways of getting to the same goal by opening up a little bit to the Iranians. I'm not sure, as Dr. Said said, that this is an attitude that's going to be very helpful, unfortunately. But this was tried by the Emiratis as well. And we see that this didn't stop the Houthis from, with all the Iranian support, from hitting the Emirates. So probably this, as Dr. Said said, this maximum diplomacy attitude is not working. And I hope that the Emirates and the rest of the Arab world will join us in approaching the parties negotiating in Vienna in delivering the very clear message. You have to be strong. You have to be decisive in your demands that the Iranians will give up this project. That's the most important thing. And I think this can also even work.
Question here for Yossi. Do you think that the concept that the United Arab Emirates needs Israel's strong influence in the United States is prevalent in the Arab world? And doesn't it sound a bit like the anti-Semitic argument that the Jewish state controls Washington?
Well, we don't control Washington, and everybody knows that. So this anti-Semitic trope is baseless. But we have good relations with Washington. Yes, we have very good relations because we have the same values and the same strategic interests, and that's what makes us close friends of the Americans. And I think that this friendship and this strong relations are not unnoticed by the Arab world, and they were, as Dr. Said mentioned, part of the considerations for the United Arab Emirates to go to the Abraham Accords. And they got some benefits from it with the approval of the F-35 deal and with the general attitude. Now, there is a problem here, no doubt, that this current administration in the United States has a little bit different approach on certain Middle Eastern issues than that of the previous administration. And in this respect, these good relations that Israel has with the United States are becoming even more important in securing the interests and the security interests of many Arab countries who are exposed to the ongoing effort of the radicals led by Iran and its proxies and surrogates to hit and harm the security of these states. And I think that together we have a better chance of convincing the Americans to adopt a policy that takes into consideration these threats than if we do it each one by ourselves, on his own. And I think this is very, very important that we cooperate on that. And this meeting, this visit, is a message to the United States. We are together here, and we have the same expectations from you. And since we are your allies, please take our concerns into account.